The Saints are favored by 5.5 points on Sunday against the Steelers. But without Connor in the lineup for the Steelers, Sal, should New Orleans be favored by more?
No, I don't think so. The Steelers' running back position is like the Colonel in the KFC ads. They keep changing them, and it doesn't matter. Whoever's in there is finger-licking good.
Great comparison.
Right? See,
yes,
that's pretty good,
on.
right? But it's the Saints' run defense, which is pretty spectacular. It's what's going to make this even more glaring. Look at them. Look at these premier running backs who they've held in check. Barkley, Gurley, Elliott, McCaffrey, Mixon, all these guys have been tabbed for MVP by Clay Travis at one point or the other this year.
True story.
And they've all gone down. I think the Saints are the team here. Steelers are like other teams who beat the Patriots. The next week, they go on the road and they get blasted. Look at that. Ooh. Look at those numbers. That doesn't say that exactly, but Clay's Titans and the Dolphins, and I think the Lions went on and lost the next week too. I think give 7.5, even if it goes that high.
By the way, you'd make a great colonel. Can I just say that?
Thank you. I was really lobbying for the position.
Sal, you bring up a great point talking about the very real letdown factor for the Steelers. Can they bring the same energy and effort that we saw last weekend at home in their win against the Patriots? You mentioned their run defense, and I think this is where the real difference comes in. Look at how the Steelers perform offensively when they go on the road compared to how dynamic the Saints have been offensively at home. Now, I don't think New Orleans is going to play at this high level because this Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been clicking on all cylinders since about week 5. They've really held their opposition in check. But New Orleans defense is the unit that nobody wants to talk about outside of on this show, where we've tried to drive the point home that they've held their last 6 opponents to 20 points or less. They've made it extremely difficult on not only opposing rushing attacks, but also throwing now with the new look secondary that they've assembled. I think this is a defensive-style football game. New Orleans got the better defense. Alvin Kamara or Michael Thomas make a big play. I'd agree with you. I'd lean towards laying the points with the Saints, but I like the under a whole lot more.
Yeah, I was curious in general what the impact with James Conner out has been. But before that, I wanted to go to what the impact with Le'Veon Bell out has been to kind of think about how the rush attack has evolved over the course of the year for the Steelers. And so if you look at it, the offense has actually been better this year without Le'Veon Bell than it has been with him. Obviously, they've run the ball a little bit less. But what's the impact of James Conner? Because last week they didn't have him, and they looked fantastic against the Patriots.
Right.
So when you look at that, my expectation was there hasn't been much of an impact when James Conner is out, but the stats actually suggest that the Steelers are substantially worse, notwithstanding the fact that they just made that performance against last week with the running attack that they had. So all that being said, I still think this is more about the Saints than it is about the Steelers. I like the Saints' defense no matter who the running back is. I like the Saints no matter who Pittsburgh is putting out on the field. I think the Saints win by a touchdown or more, lock up overall #1 seed in the NFC, and then rest everybody the final week of the season against the Panthers.
For me, though, I do think James Conner's absence is going to be felt. I know Jalen Samuels put together a great game, 19 carries, 140+. But his running style, in my opinion, is more getting to the edge, and he was able to exploit the lack of speed the Patriots had on the edge. I think you'd like Conner in this particular spot to be able to run between the tackles. Even if it was only for 50 or 60 yards, it would force the Saints to respect the run. I don't think Samuel does that, and I think you're really going to see a different-looking Steelers offense on the road.
Todd, this may be a dumb question. You can totally tell me if it is. Is it worth at least 1 or 2 points how badly Pittsburgh is going to want this game because they're still fighting for a playoff spot?
You know, it's a great question, Rachel, because desperation does always play a role. The Saints will have 2 cracks to lock up home field throughout the NFC playoffs. But for me, the Steelers needing this game combined with the potential letdown of the game against the Patriots last weekend, I think they counteract one another, and I wouldn't make any adjustments based on that for my power rating given the situation.
All right.
So proud of herself. Look at her. You got a great question. You got the endorsement of the day from Fuhrman.
I'm a journalist. What can I say? All right, we've been talking about this all morning
And
on
all those
FS1.
pretzels, too.
Yeah.
I'm a bloated journalist. Josh Gordon is walking away from the Patriots to work on his mental health. In addition, NFL Network reports Gordon is facing another indefinite suspension for violating terms of his reinstatement under the substance abuse policy. Gordon tweeted out this statement earlier this morning saying, quote, "I take my mental health very seriously at this point to ensure I remain able to perform at the highest level. I have recently felt like I could have a better grasp of things mentally. With that being said, I will be stepping away from the football field for a bit to focus on my mental health." The Pats are 12.5-point favorites over the Bills Sunday. How will Gordon stepping away from football impact New England this weekend? Clay, what do you think?
I initially was thinking to myself, oh, it's probably not going to be that impactful because if you look at what Tom Brady has done over time with wide receivers, Gronk is the only Hall of Famer I think he's thrown to for multiple years that started his career with New England. Obviously, he had Randy Moss for a couple of years. But I actually think this Patriot offense desperately needs Josh Gordon, and the numbers reflect it, and Brady is substantially worse with and without Josh Gordon. I know everybody wants to talk about this, so I'll go ahead and throw it up on the screen there for everybody to see. I mean, that's a pretty substantial difference. Now, maybe you can argue that that this is just coincidence, but to me, the big play star there is maybe the most important. The Patriots have a lot of possession receivers who lack explosiveness. I think this is a big hit to the Patriots down the stretch. It actually makes me even more confident in my bet that I've placed on the Bills, who have already a really good defense, and now they have much less to have to cover all over the field. You look at this Buffalo Bill defense, they are, I think, one of the most under-discussed and undercovered great defenses in the NFL so far this year, and I think they're going to have a good shot to keep it close against the Patriots. I think 12.5 is too many. I know Sal and I disagree on that, but I think this certainly plays into the idea that this is not going to be a total beatdown delivered by the Patriots against the Bills.
Yeah, Clay, that defensive graphic speaks volumes. I mean, so much is made of this Buffalo offense and how they've looked under Josh Allen's leadership, who, despite his own shortcomings in the passing game, is still putting up gaudy fantasy numbers with his newfound running ability. But when you look at their number one pass defense that they have, they're one of 3 teams in the league allowing their opponents less than 5 yards per play. We know about the Bears and we know about the Ravens, but the Bills don't get mentioned in the same breath nearly enough. You talked about the potential. New England struggles to try and find big plays. I think the Patriots are going to have to come out and use tempo. They're going to need to get James White involved, but it allows opposing defenses, without Josh Gordon out there, to operate in a 20 or 30-yard window. You don't have to worry about getting beat over the top, and this is where New England's got to deal with adversity. We've seen this franchise rally before. Maybe this is just another side note to New England winning the AFC, but I think defensively, that's where they have to step up, make the Bills one-dimensional, shorten the game a little bit, and take full advantage of potential field position that can work in their favor. I like this game under the total. I'm not sure where the big plays come from on either side.
Yeah, what does that mean? So much has been made of the Bills' offense. They're 31st in the league. They're 15 points per game. I don't think that's such a great number.
Sal. There's shortcomings to that Bills offense.
Bills is a fun team to dislike.
Speaking of Bills, Bill Belichick spits in the face of adversity.
Oh,
that's
finally.
what he does. And if I could bet over-under trick plays this week, I'd bet over 2.5. Julian Edelman is going to end up throwing a 40-yard touchdown pass to himself somehow, and the Patriots are going to win, and they're going to win big. And Josh Gordon had a lot of drops last week. That hurt as much as his departure this week, I would say.
Yeah.
But I would say the Patriots 13-3 against the spread in their last 16 home games versus a team with a losing record. Yeah, I find that hard to believe there's a 10-point difference with or without Josh Gordon and his 4 targets per game. I take the Patriots. What do you say, Fuhrman? Lay it or flambe it? Something like that?
That's it. You nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. Lay it or flambe it.
You know what? I wish I had that kind of cooking prowess so I could flambe it. Lay it or don't play it. I'll stick to that.
Oh, all right. That's not as fun.
I hope this guy finds some peace. I really do. I feel for him better because I cannot watch Jameis Winston lick his fingers again. I can't. I won't. I cannot do it. Cowboys guard Zach Martin also didn't practice Wednesday after not playing last week. Todd, is Dallas still a lock to cover the number against the Bucs? What do you think?
Oh, they're far from a lock in this particular spot. When you consider the Cowboys have beaten one opponent by more than 8 points all season, and that was the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. Side note on that, the Cowboys were actually home underdogs in that particular spot. But among teams with winning records, the Cowboys have the lowest margin of victory at 8.6, which for me speaks to the fact that sometimes they struggle to really put opponents away. And Tampa, they're the 3rd most productive offense in the league behind only the Chiefs and Rams this season. I think that would surprise a lot of people. You look at their yardage differential, plus 419. That's good enough for 9th in the league. And Tampa, no stranger to stout defenses. You look at the opponents they've played each of the last 2 weeks. They were competitive for about 3 quarters with the Saints before they were done in by a special teams blunder. And if you got the best of the number against the Ravens last weekend, they were able to cover. I think Tampa's going to give Dallas all they can handle. And then some. Game goes over the total. I like Dallas a lot more as a teaser leg than I do laying the lumber.
Oh, I hate this game. Personal note, Tampa's easily in the top 3 of worst teams I bet on or against of the last decade. I must have an 8 winning percentage against. But a double screw job could be coming because as a future, I bet Tampa under 6.5 wins.
So this
is going to be a lot of fun for me. But I'll say this. They're 30th in the league against the run. They've given up 17 touchdowns against the run, 17 rushing touchdowns. That bodes well for Zeke Elliott. And the Cowboys do better after a loss as a running team. They're 4-1 against the spread. What is that? 4-1 and then 3-2 against the spread. Look at Prescott's touchdowns to interceptions. I think it's going to be good. Their defense has held the last 6 opponents to 25 points or less. I think they score in the high 30s. And lay it or fillet it, as Fuhrman says. We'll just keep coming up with new ones here.
Fuhrman hit on it that the Cowboys haven't been that impressive when you look at the margin of victory they've posted. In fact, they've been the least impressive team who has a winning record in the NFL so far this year, with the fewest double-digit wins. When you start talking about 7.5 or 8, I think that gets difficult. I'd probably hop on the Bucs. I also think the Bucs could make sense for this reason. Jameis Winston has got 21 million reasons to care a great deal about this game. While he's not eating any W's and he's certainly not putting his team into the postseason, this is, I think, the kind of game that everybody looks at when they decide whether or not to give him that $21 million at the end of the year. Maybe they're going to give it to him regardless, but you'd like to have a victory like this or even a performance like this on a big stage against a major opponent to hang your hat on when you justify, if you are the organization, picking up his option for $21+ million going forward. So I like the Bucs here, plus the 8, especially if you can get it.
Hold on, back off with the Cowboys' margin of victory being low. They play in a very, very tough division, okay? Everything needs to be considered here.
Yeah.
Sal, am I sensing a little nervousness? Are you shaking in your little size 5 booties or what?
No, I'm just glad I'm not wearing khakis right now. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel Bonnetta, host of Lock It In. Thank you so much for watching. You need to subscribe. And I think the button's somewhere. It's somewhere on this page. To get the latest from the show, make sure you check out more of the best clips from Lock It In or go watch a few other segments from our other awesome shows on FS1. But subscribe. Make sure you do that.